Hey, listeners, welcome back to another amazing episode of Trifantry Chronicles. Today, we travel all the way to the USA where we meet our friend Saurav Bhasin. Saurav Bhasin is an incredible individual. When you go to his Instagram, you will be so amazed to see all the summits that he's been doing, all the Ironman races that he's been doing. He's done 5 full Ironman races. He's done over 10 70.3s. He's done multiple 100 milers. He's on his way to peaking all 7 summits. Is that correct, Saurabh? He's on that journey. And when you go to his LinkedIn profile, you'll see that most incredible organizations that he's been part of. He's building world-changing brands and platforms. Currently working at Google. Saurabh, thank you so much for taking out your time and looking forward to your words of wisdom.
Thanks for the introduction, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you and hopefully share my journey and be able to inspire others.
No, absolutely. I think what we're gonna do is we'll put all your social bios in the show notes, and let's start right at the very beginning. How did you get into endurance sport, and then how did you get into mountaineering as your passion?
Yeah, I think it's probably unlike others
Hmm.
where people have been doing sports for all their life and they
Hmm.
just kind of naturally progress to bigger and bigger things. I started pretty late in early 30s, so as you can probably tell from the gray beard here that
Hmm.
I'm you know much past the early 30s. So that's when I started, and the the reason here was probably similar to what most people have is they want to live a healthier lifestyle. They want
Hmm.
to undo the wrongs they've done in their 20s by lots of unhealthy habits. So
Hmm.
that's where I got started, and running was a way for me to try to uh, get outside and do
Hmm.
something that I was very uncomfortable doing.
Hmm.
It used to take me a long time just to run, 3 miles
Hmm.
or a 5K. So that's where I started.
Hmm.
And, I figured that, I'll try to sign up for a race. And I signed up
Hmm.
for a very short race, 5 miles. I think 5 miles
Hmm.
is
Good.
even less than 10K, I think. So it's a
Yeah.
pretty short distance. And after doing that, it really led me
Hmm.
to, figuring out what is the next distance. Of course, half marathons and doing a few half marathons,
Hmm.
then you get sucked into this cycle of wanting to do more,
More.
which led me to do marathons and bigger races. And while I was doing marathons, I was really intrigued by trail running because
Hmm.
that really is uh, it mixes the running plus just hills and mountains that I really love,
Hmm.
and that is much more enjoyable to me compared to
Hmm.
just running on the road or running on the track. I can never run
Hmm.
circles on the track. It's just painful for me. So,
Yeah.
that's been quickly about the journey, and we can go into more details.
So absolutely. When we were having this discussion just before pressing record, you told me that you've run a race which was 205 miler, and you ran for days, not hours, not half a day, not for 12 hours, not for 24 hours. You were running for 98 hours non-stop. Please tell me, how did you do it? Why did you do it? I mean, I'm sure it is incredibly painful after about 4 5 hours, 6 hours. How did you even manage to survive that long without the usual, injuries, ankle pain, knee pain, ITB, this,
Mhm.
that, all of those things? How did you manage 98 hours of that 205 miler race?
I think this topic probably has to
Hmm.
start with some context and
Hmm.
some
Hmm.
history, right?
Hmm.
So, like I was saying, I was doing a bunch of marathons, and
Hmm. Hmm.
as I was running trails, that community is slightly different from the road running community in the sense that there is longer distances that trail
Hmm.
runners typically go on to compared to road running, where you know um, the typical distance is marathons. And of course,
Hmm.
now you have road running ultras, and
Ultras.
there's been road running ultras for quite some time, like the Comrades Marathon, and there's long distance on track. But that was never the interest. But nonetheless, but the point here is that there's longer distances that I started getting curious about, and I figured, hey, what's this 50K? And it's only just 5 more miles than a marathon. So I tried this thing called a 50K, and it was painful, because these are all mountain ultras. You're gaining thousands of feet, you're losing thousands of feet. It's not like running around a track. So that was painful, but it's what they call type 2 fun, where you're not really having a lot of fun, but you think about it, that event that you did, and you enjoy thinking about it. So that's the type 2 fun. So that led me to go on to do some 50Ks. That led me to say, okay, maybe I can try a 50 miler, and that's, I think, about 80 kilometers. So did that.
Wow.
And that establishes more confidence. Then went on and tried a 100K, which is 62 miles, and just continued building confidence, and then ended up doing 100 miles.
Wow.
And eventually, I think the point I'm trying to also make here is that it's always, for me, about progression and taking it one step at a time, rather than just jumping it into a 200 miler, right? So, once, and 100 mile is incredibly long and incredibly hard, and a lot of people consider that success. And as I was doing these races, I met people who were doing even beyond, right? There's always somebody who is doing more, and they're inspiring you, right? So all of these friends of mine, they inspired me to think about, well, maybe I can do the same. And that's how always, like, things have started, is like, can I look at a friend of mine, another like person living a normal life, and be inspired by them and do something similar. So I was out there pacing somebody in a 200 miler that they were doing.
Wow.
And I spent 24 hours there, and you're not really moving fast, but you're moving consistently. And that experience established for me that I should try it. So that's where I signed up for Tahoe 200. It's a race around Lake Tahoe. It covers California and Nevada. So it's a 5-day race. You cover 205 miles. It's all mountains and trails. And the total elevation gain is 35,000 feet, and 35,000 feet of loss. So the question that you asked, now that I want to have described some of the context behind it, I think after like a few hours, it really transitions to being a mind game. It's not a physical thing anymore, and you have to be very close to, like, why you're doing it, and that's what keeps you in there. That's what keeps your mind in the game. So really, it's about how can you continue to stay focused, and also how do you solve problems on the go, because things don't really go the way you want for 5 days straight, right? So if you can solve problems, if you can stay focused, if you can keep moving forward, that's really the way to get it done. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. You're going to be tired. You're going to be hungry. There's going to be all of those things. But it's also amazing to see that the body will cooperate.
An interesting question comes to my mind, when you talk about a 200-miler race. So typically when you're training for a full marathon, you would have these longer runs, let's say 23, 24, 28, 36, and that's where you max out. How do you decide your training volume when you're looking at a 350 kilometers, 340 kilometer kind of a race? And how much time does it typically take for a trained marathoner to graduate to your level of a, let's say, a 100-miler or a 200-miler?
Yeah, I think, if you do it in the way that you progress from, one distance to the next distance to the next distance, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, there's no shortcuts, right? Now, of course, there's people that are more talented than I am who can jump straight into these distances.
You're too humble.
That's totally fine. No, I mean, I'm just an average person. But what I'm trying to say is that it takes, just take your time with it, build it up and go from there. To the question about like how long does it take in terms of like training and that general approach, um, I think training for an ultra largely comes down to a few things. One is, you increase your volume by applying some methods in your training, like doing a double run on weekdays. That's one way to increase your mileage. Run a few miles in the morning, run a few miles in the evening, and that way you can add up miles. A lot of walking is actually useful because in some of these long races, it's inevitable unless you're out in the front and you're Killian and Courtney and some of these people, like pretty much most of us walk at some point in the race. So walking helps, and then the weekend runs are where you get the most benefit out of your training. Where I remember doing, for example, 20 miles on Saturday and 20 miles on Sunday, or 50K on Saturday and a 50K on Sunday. So like doing back-to-back long runs of 20-30 miles. Another one that really is to get you prepared mentally is to do a night run, like an all-night run.
Okay.
So you come back from work, let's say on Friday, and grab some dinner and then just go out for a run at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. and you come back home at 6 a.m. right? So that stimulates fatigue, and that stimulates like because just running in the dark is a different kind of running, especially with a headlamp when you have rocks. It may be cloudy, foggy. There's all kinds of things, right? So it also helps you train what night running looks like, especially if you haven't trained running in the night or running with a headlamp. So you have to put all of that together. But from a volume perspective, 100-mile to 200-mile training, the volume isn't that much. I think I maybe have done 100-mile week once or twice in my life, not more than that. So usually I'm always around like 70-80 miles. Sometimes it's even less per week.
Incredible. I think the numbers that you
spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time, like there's been a few years, like, so for example, I think for the last 4 or 5 years I've been putting in about 250,000 feet of climbing per year. So like quarter million feet of climbing per year, or 300,000 feet of climbing. So that it just varies. Like from a time perspective, I spend a lot of time, but the distances may not be that much. But you have to accumulate. Like it also depends on what race you're training for. If you're training for a track 100-miler, you don't need to do any hills. But that's not my cup of tea.
You touched upon a very important topic of problem solving on the go when you're running for 5 days straight without any sleep. You had mentioned that you sleep about 3 to 4 hours in the entire 5 days of running, and I would like to draw some parallels.
That's because I'm slow. Faster people sleep more.
I would want you to draw parallels with your professional career. You're a product leader. You've built some amazing products and worked with amazing companies. So how much of your running prowess and problem solving skills have you been able to apply here, and vice versa? Are there any parallels? Does your running help you in building a mindset which also helps in your professional career?
Oh, no doubt. It goes both ways, where it really defines or solidifies or reinforces who you are as a person, and what you can do in tough situations. If your attitude is, I'm going to figure things out, I'm going to solve this problem, I'm going to look for places where I can get help, I can do things, that attitude applies everywhere. And if you're the kind of person where you're like I don't know what to do, or like maybe I'll try tomorrow, like sometimes you need to back off and take some time off and rest. Like those are all valid things, but the general attitude that it enforces does cross over, and it helps you, especially in the uncertain times. Like when things are going great, like nobody really thinks about all of this. It all comes together. Like what you're made of. Like that's really what it comes down to.
Wow. And we are seeing a lot of new tech startups coming up in the space of fitness and recovery. For example, Hyperice, and a lot is happening on the nutrition side as well. There are so many new companies based out of US like Peloton. There are some home-based workout companies also. What do you make of it? And do you think that home workouts are something that can actually build not just aerobic but anaerobic work, strength and conditioning? Are these something that will stay with you, and is this something that you would like to do?
Yeah, I think maybe again, I think there's a few parts to this. One is uh, for me personally, and I'm pretty sure you as a coach also look for this, which is consistency is more important than anything else. Number one thing is, show up and do things. Sometimes it's 20 minutes, sometimes it's 2 hours. Like it really depends on how you're feeling, and learning to listen to your body. If you don't know how to do that, or if you haven't gotten there yet because you don't have experience, then of course coaches can help you, like yourself. But that's number one. It's consistency. Now, do you go to a gym? Do you work out at home? I really don't have an opinion on that. I've been doing strength training at home for a couple of years. Just buy some dumbbells and
did that get
do
triggered
strength
because
training.
of COVID, or that is something that you did cautiously?
Probably. No, I think it was probably because of COVID, but it also helps me optimize my time. I did buy a treadmill because of COVID, but it's actually helping me optimize my time because with a family, with a kid, it's sometimes you need to be at home, but you also want to get a workout. So I think it's really like what you can make out of the situation as an individual. It comes back to number one, you have to show up, you have to do the work, and you have to do it consistently. Now whether you go out and lift a heavy rock, or you lift a dumbbell, or you go to a gym, maybe I'm old school, it doesn't really matter to me. And I mean, to be honest, like for maybe 10 plus years, I didn't do any strength training. I just went out and ran, and I biked hours and hours and hours, and I swam. I just did basic training. And like when I was doing Ironmans, I was doing 5,000 miles a year of biking. So I don't particularly think that it's any kind of equipment that helps you. Now, of course, with evolution and tech, it's going to make things easier. You're going to get more data, but then do you know how to use the data, or are you just like staring at numbers? Because I've got the fancy trainer, I've got all kinds of gadgets. So it really comes down to what do you do with it? Yeah. So you can improve your engine, I guess. That's number one.
Absolutely. I think it's very important that not to get embroiled in the type of data that is available, the equipment, and a lot of resources that we are constantly pushing. We as triathletes, and I think I can say this for you as well, triathletes end up buying so much good shit, bad shit, ugly shit, so much equipment, so many things which are technical, non-technical.
You name it, I probably have that gadget.
Yeah, 100%. And I think at the end of the day, it all boils down to your own consistency that we were talking about. And it's just, I think that's something that cannot be bought with any equipment or any coaching methodology or any structured program. It's about, I think, fighting your own inner procrastinator and just showing up, right?
I think it's really that simple. Being consistent, being true to yourself, disciplined, eating well, sleeping well. There's no magic, but consistency is hard.
Absolutely. No, 100%. I also want to check with you, what are your thoughts on, there are famous people like David Goggins or ultra runners, James Lawrence. These folks talk about inner demons and fears when they are running for not hours, but days. And there are certain dark places in their lives and their minds that they have to tap into to be able to go out and do these multi-day runs. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any fears or demons that you tap into?
Like I personally don't call any of this as like fears or demons. I've read the Goggins book. I know what James Lawrence and these folks have gone through. So I think what they're doing is they're using um events and and general happenings to inspire them, right? So the way I would think about it is like, are you drawing inspiration from within, from somebody else? And I think that is the message. What that's what they're saying. Like, how do you channel it, right? I was watching something on the TV where uh, you know somebody who used to get bullied channel that towards playing a musical instrument. So I think that's the message that these folks are trying to say. And if you have something that is negative in your past and you can apply that to be focused,
Okay.
to prove yourself or somebody else wrong. Hopefully, you're not like doing it for anybody else. You're doing it for yourself, right? And I think that's what I believe in, which is just like, again, why do you show up every day? Right?
Absolutely.
Because you want to
That
be
why.
happy, right? You want to be happy. Like, it could be simple. You want to be happy. This is your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Or maybe if you're just like want to do one marathon and then go back
Good.
and you know party every weekend, like fine. But you have to be very clear what your goal is.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think if your why is not strong enough, if you don't know why you want to do it, and it has to be intrinsic. I think it cannot be extrinsic. It cannot be for the vanity metrics, or it cannot be for the hate of some person or the negativity that you might be getting it, because all of that you'll realize is very temporary. Even the goods, all the compliments and everything that you do
Yeah, the
get in
more
the
you can
beginning.
focus on yourself, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It has to be intrinsic. Otherwise, it's just, after like 2 or 4 hours of any long distance endurance, all of that is going to evaporate. And that's where the shaft will be separated from the hay. So I think if your why is not correct, like you mentioned, you will not be able to sustain in any sport. And I really, appreciate your candidness in terms of saying that you don't have inner demons, or you don't like to call them demons or fears, because it's something that you are. It's not because you are motivated because of some X thing happened in your in the past, and I want to now look back at it, because a lot of people are trained in this kind of psychology that if you've not been hurt in the past, probably you're not changed. If some girl or boy has not broken your heart, you're probably not be able to tap into it. So if it works for.
Let me say something controversial, right? Like, I haven't met a single person who hasn't gone through pain.
Yeah.
Everybody has,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What do you do about it?
Hmm.
What do you like? And it's the same thing. Like, at a time, there was a time when I was not comfortable swimming, and I was afraid that I'm going to drown. But I mean, okay, great. So keep showing up to the pool. 3, 4, 5 times a week. You put in the work. I'm not a great swimmer, but I can finish an Ironman swim, no problem.
Yeah.
But I wasn't doing that on day one. It took me a while. So like, it really comes out like, okay, as we were saying, if you can apply that, if you can focus that experience from your past, and you know that you want to get something out of it, and what that something is, and you're willing to work towards it, that's great. Let's get started.
Absolutely. Saurav, I have a question for you. I saw your previous podcast with Run Yogi, where you were wearing a T-shirt called 8848. So I understand what 8848 stands for. Would you enlighten the audience who are listening or watching this right now? What does 8848 stand for? And is that your ultimate dream? When do you intend to go after it?
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. Maybe we can transition a little bit towards that part of my life. So, you know, I did a few Ironmans and triathlons, and all of that was great. And at some point, I wanted to do a little bit more and explore different things. And I was always into mountaineering. So, as you do things, you learn about different activities, events, objectives from other athletes that are doing it. So I
Hmm.
started hearing about this concept of seven summits,
Hmm.
and it sounds what it is, which is getting to the high point of each continent.
Hmm.
And I figured, okay, that's a scary goal. Like
Hmm.
back in the day, doing an Ironman was a scary goal. So
Hmm.
it's the same deal, right? It starts with like, wow, that's a big goal.
Hmm.
Um, and then, I signed up and started with the first one, which was Aconcagua in Argentina. So that's
Hmm.
the highest mountain in South America
Okay.
and the highest mountain in the southern hemisphere and the highest mountain outside of the Himalayas.
Oh, wow.
So it's just about 23,000 feet. So I don't know how much that is in meters. I think it's like almost 7,000 meters or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So, I was probably very naive. I thought,
Hmm.
hey, I'm into running. I'm probably in good shape. I didn't do any kind of training. I just showed up,
Hmm.
and luckily it worked out, and I got to the top.
Hmm.
But like I'd been doing mountaineering courses here in California because we have this
Hmm.
amazing mountain range here called the Sierra Nevada,
Hmm.
and I've been learning about what the skills are because at some point you
Hmm.
need skills beyond just like moving and walking and good lungs. You need technique. So
Yeah.
I've been picking that up along the way, and started down that journey. So
Hmm.
um, 8848 is, well, I think it keeps changing, but that
Hmm.
is the most prominent number in terms of the height of Mount Everest, which
Hmm.
is in Nepal and the high point of Asia,
Hmm.
border of Nepal and China, or Nepal and Tibet. Um, so it's on the list,
Hmm.
and if it all works out, I'm hoping to
Hmm.
be there next year.
Wow, incredible, incredible. I as a triathlete and a triathlon coach, what comes to my mind is that the amount of logistics and the amount of equipment required to be able to finish one race or train for it is a lot, right? A lot of resources are required. But then
Yeah.
you look at something like a mountaineering and the kind of I've seen your pictures and they look amazing, of course, because they are probably at the culmination of each of the summit. But the amount of logistics equipment that you have to solve for it must be a lot, right? And so what does it take? Is how is the equipment like? Are things available?
Yeah, so you, as you go on these expeditions,
Hmm.
uh, most folks will provide you with like what the gear list is or the checklist is, and then you start
Hmm.
accumulating this over time.
Hmm.
So as I was saying, like in this journey of seven summits, I just finished
Hmm.
four, so I have three more left.
Hmm.
And I have been accumulating all the gear over time.
Hmm.
And luckily, a lot of this is kind of like triathlon, where you buy this really expensive but jacket that will save your life, and
Hmm.
you just keep it,
Yeah.
right? and
Yeah. Yeah.
and you take good care of your gear just like you take good care of your bike, and it lasts. So yeah, like it's just like any other sport. It's just different kind of gear, and you
Hmm.
just build on as you do small climbs and big climbs and bigger climbs, you just build
Hmm.
on it. So, over time, I think people will accumulate things like
Hmm.
crampons, ice axe, boots,
Hmm.
uh, different kinds of layering system
Hmm.
because all of these mountains are cold.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think it's just a matter of like, going out there,
Hmm.
um, and 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 you test this gear because sometimes you're
Hmm.
out there. I've been on mountains where you
Hmm.
realize that, oh, this glove system is not working out because you're layering a few different gloves, and then you
Hmm.
experiment and you try.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hopefully, you're not trying all of this on your actual big expedition. You
Hmm.
have a lot of smaller expeditions.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's a very specialized sport. Uh,
Hmm.
if you want to, for example, just do kind of like a marathon, right? Like if you want to do a checkbox marathon and move on to like
Hmm.
other things in your life, yeah, you can
Hmm.
rent some of this gear, just like how you can rent gear in any other
Hmm.
sport, right? You can rent a wetsuit, you can rent
Right.
maybe even a bike, I guess.
Even a
I don't
bike.
know.
Yeah.
You can rent, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, my approach is like, I want to build a long-term project about it. So,
Hmm.
I've been getting all the
Hmm.
right gear for it, and I think at this point I have pretty much everything I
Hmm.
need for the last three that are left.
Hmm. Uh, how's the response from your missus? You must be taking at least a room or two for all your triathlon equipments as well as your mountaining gear. Do you have storage spaces close by where you dump everything?
I just have to pack it away very neatly and nicely in a
Hmm.
closet.
Incredible.
That's really it.
I mean, I'm speaking this because I'm in India and I'm in Bombay right now, and space is such a
Mhm.
constraint here. Bombay, everything is so crammed. It's pretty much like probably Japan or Korea, where space is a issue, and you don't
Yeah,
have the
yeah, yeah.
luxury of just having everything. But having said that, having lived in maybe North Chandigarh or Bangalore, you have all the luxury and all the spaces, and you have big houses, so you can dump shit and keep everything. So yeah, I mean, it's a practical problem for
Yeah,
sure.
it's likewise, I have a trainer, I have a couple of bikes,
Mm.
even to this day, and there's all this gear, but
Mm.
it's 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 just like having clothes.
Mm. Absolutely.
Find a good place for them, and uh,
100%.
yeah. But anyway,
Huh.
it it comes down to like what you're doing for how long,
Yeah,
what your interest is, what you want to get out of it,
certainly.
and then everything else like falls into place,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
you'll find the place for it, you'll take care of it.
100%.
Yeah.
You you start making connect also with your machine, right? It could be anything, but you start taking care of it. And I feel that if you during normal days and other days when you take care of it, respect it. In India, we have a thing called Vishwakarma Puja also, where they literally do religious activity around equipments and bikes and
I see.
automobiles, where you literally are doing like a thali puja and
I
washing
see.
them, cleaning them, all of that. So if you sort of respect them, there is a concept like everything has Saraswati in it, and Saraswati is a goddess, right? Goddess of wisdom and knowledge and all of that. So when you take care of your books and things and
Yeah.
equipment, it just comes back and gives 100x more to you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I grew up in India. I
Hmm.
left when I was 17, but
Hmm.
definitely have
Similar.
recollections of this, and I think you're right. It's about um doing things sincerely, doing it with
Hmm.
respect.
Yeah,
So, and it's all connected, right?
absolutely.
Why do you care?
Hmm.
So I think it's really like making sure like it's really true and you are
Hmm.
true to yourself. Now, of course, yes, I want to post awesome pictures on Instagram.
Hmm.
Like everybody likes gratification when people like their stuff. So yes,
Absolutely.
all of that matters.
100%. 100%. I want to ask a question that has always been in my mind. The question
Mhm.
is sports like a running marathon or maybe a triathlon or a full Ironman are very fast paced sport, right? Fast as in like you are constantly on the move, you are at certain speeds. One of your goals is obviously speed. But when you transition to mountaineering, it's not a fast sport. And if you were that fast, you wouldn't sort of probably survive also the arduous journey. How did you
Mhm.
transition this fast paced mindset, pacing, and all of those numbers and whatnot to mountaineering, which is kind of slow? You're not moving so fast. You're probably moving like 4 kilometers an hour, 3 or 4. Correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, what's that like? How do you switch
Yeah.
gears?
I think so. I'll provide you
Hmm.
perspective
Hmm.
on
Hmm. Hmm.
like this, right? Um, if you remove the concept of pace for this
Hmm.
from any conversation from a minute for a
Hmm.
minute, and
Hmm.
think about this as journey,
Hmm.
milestones, outcome. You know, think of it from that perspective.
Hmm.
So even when I'm running like a marathon or trail races or a 100 mile, or whatever it is, right? And maybe I'm just saying this because I'm slow, but what I'm saying is the process is really important. The process of
Hmm.
training, the process of doing things, enjoying it. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of times people will get really focused on did I run
Hmm.
a 6 minute mile or a 7 minute mile. there's so many factors. You maybe didn't sleep well, maybe you're stressed, maybe you didn't eat well, maybe you are, heavier than what you were when you ran the 6 minute mile before. It could be many things. So you have to, really again, like look at, are you happy? Are you getting things out of it that you want? Like, are you still enjoying being out there? Because you don't want to get burnt out. So having said that, that's the way I have approached it. So I don't really look at running as fast and mountaineering as slow. I look at both of these activities are things that I enjoy, and you do them based on how the sport is done. And mountaineering is about being meticulous, but also it is fundamentally required that you acclimatize at a pace so that you don't die. um, right, the consequences are different.
Yeah.
In a 5K you can go all out and
Yeah.
it's all great, right? So I don't look at it as fast or slow. I look at it as, am I having fun? Am I getting what I want out of it? And like this afternoon I went and ran like 4 or 5 miles. I ran like 8:15 pace. It's not super fast, but it's not slow, hopefully. So I don't really think about pace.
Okay.
I think about like how I'm feeling. It same thing applies to like heart rate. Like people like, and maybe actually I acknowledge that people who are getting started, who are just getting started into being an athlete, they probably need some of this guidance.
Yeah.
But later, you figure it out.
Yeah.
What 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 it really feels like a hard run, what feels like an easy run. You start going by feel and effort and those soft things rather than like those hard numbers. So anyway, that's a long way of saying I don't really worry about pace.
Amazing. I mean, this is a revelation for me as well.
And by the way, like I'll tell you, like I've done an Ironman in like 12 hours. So like hopefully that's like, I mean, it's not like winning times, but it's not like slow times either.
Yeah. No, 100%. As a triathlete or even a early marathoner, half marathoner, or 10K person who's trying to learn, the goal is always, it tends to, even the coaches or the ecosystem is trying to tell you, Arey, I did this in this time, I did this in that time. It's always about the time. It's always about the pacing and the racing and pacing strategy. But what you
and that's okay. I mean, it's totally fine. Like maybe at that point in their journey that they want to run a marathon under 3 hours. Like hey, then you have to worry about that. You have to care about it.
100%.
For me, like sure, like if but I just like like I don't get any joy out of like running 8 kilometer repeats. Like I don't want to go to a track. It's like why?
Yeah. I mean, I think fundamentally what you're saying is that there are other parameters also in the endurance journey where you can derive equal amount of joy, equal amount of happiness or returns than just looking at a few statistics. And that's how probably your mindset has also been built.
You shouldn't be comparing. You shouldn't be comparing it to like like Nishant ran 20-minute 5K. Great.
Yeah, good for
Do I want to run a 20-minute 5K? I mean, yeah, if I'm probably rested, I can bang it out tomorrow, no problem.
Yeah. 100%. Let's segue to our conversation towards recovery, because I feel recovery is one of the most important pillars of any endurance event or any event which requires anything beyond 2 hours, right? You have done races which are multi-day runs. You have done expeditions in which you are walking for days at lowest amount of oxygen. What are some of your daily recovery rituals? What are the things that you do on a daily basis during non-peak, when you're not preparing for any races, but also during your expeditions and all? How do you manage your recovery?
Yeah, I think that's probably the only place where I feel that I'm somewhere like there's something magical in like my recovery is pretty quick. Yeah, so but in terms of making sure getting good sleep, eating somewhat well, like I still don't like eat 100% well, like I snack and whatnot, but I think basics like that. And I have never foam rolled Maybe I've foam rolled like 3 or 4 times.
Really?
So I don't do that. But one thing that I picked up in my Ironman days was this like Normatec boots.
Hmm.
I use them. They seem to be
Working. Yeah.
good return on my investment.
Hmm.
Other than that, um, there's a very common popular saying in ultra marathons. It's called motion is lotion, or no, yeah, motion is lotion. Um, so I guess what they're saying with that is,
Hmm.
even if you do something like going out for an easy swim or an easy walk or an
Hmm.
easy bike ride, will
Hmm.
like flush and help your recovery.
Wow.
So just like
Hmm.
easy walk, like that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but there's days when I'm just like sitting on the couch and not doing
Hmm.
anything. So I guess there's nothing special for
Hmm.
me. Maybe as I get older, like I'll start paying attention to it.
Hmm.
Um, I think we were talking about it earlier. Like for the last few years, I've been doing strength training, and I try to
Hmm.
put in, you know, about 2 to 3 hours every week.
Hmm.
Spread out. 30-minute sessions 4 to 5 times a week.
Hmm.
So I'll do
Hmm.
like strength training, and I'm doing more of that mostly to help with my mountaineering goals, and
Okay.
not
Okay.
necessarily for recovery. I just want to
Hmm.
be stronger.
Stronger.
Yeah. So I don't really know the answer to that recovery question. You probably know that better than I do.
No, no, no. It's I think uh, recovery is something that probably is one of the most ignored as well in any triathletes or ultra endurance athletes. But it also is a sort of magic potion which helps you to keep coming back again and again and again. And
Yeah.
probably because you've been there doing that for about 20 years now, 15, 20 years, you've understood that probably this has worked, that the sleep works, or certain foods that work for
Actually,
you.
one thing I'll add,
Hmm.
it connects to like what we were talking about earlier.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like if I don't feel like going hard, if I don't feel like pushing the pace, I don't, right? So
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
listening to my body and like just doing an easy run
Yeah.
or something easy, like that
Hmm.
probably actually has helped me.
Hmm.
Um, like I've never, uh, um, yeah. So it just like
Hmm.
keeping things easy
Hmm.
is probably, and
Is
I think I hear a lot of
something that
coaches say
works.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. No, I agree with you. I think motion is lotion is something that I will certainly use and apply and then see how it works out. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So, one more question for you is what are some of the bucket list races for you in the next coming years, next few years? Seven Summit is something that obviously we talked about, but
yeah.
apart from that, Everest is something that you want to do. Some of the races that you want to do in next few years.
Yeah, in fact, like on this ultra marathon journey, I've been
Hmm.
applying for the Western States 100
Hmm.
lottery for a few years now.
Wow.
Western States is
Hmm.
a popular,
Hmm.
prestigious 100-mile race that a lot of 100-mile, a lot of ultra runners want to do.
Hmm.
So I finally got into the wait list.
Okay.
So I'm hoping I make it through the wait list, and that is in June of this year.
Wow.
So that's definitely something that I'm excited about. I'm gonna
Hmm.
be ramping up for that.
Hmm.
Along the way, I have I have a 50 miler in March. I have a 100K in April. So I'll be doing some races to train for that big one.
Okay.
Um, so Western States is probably the one that I'm really
Hmm.
excited about. And then right after that, in July, I'm going to Europe to climb Mont Blanc,
Wow.
uh, which is the highest in Western Europe.
Best.
And yeah, so I'm climbing that as my European high point,
Hmm.
because I'm not able to go to Russia because
Hmm.
of the political situation going on
Hmm.
with the
Hmm.
war and all that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to like those two specific things. And with Europe, I'll be hopefully checking off number 5. So I'll have 2
Five.
more left.
Oh, incredible. And you said Everest is next year?
That's right. And then the last one is hopefully the one in Australia, which is nothing crazy, nothing technical. It's like a hike. But
Of,
I want to hopefully
of
save
course.
that so I can do it with the family,
Uh,
uh, celebrate it. So
hmm,
that one's the easiest one. It's kind of like
hmm,
going for a 20-mile
hmm.
hike or something like that. I don't even know the exact distance, but it's not crazy.
All right. Not mincing words, not being cocky at all. After after doing so many incredible races.
No, well, I mean, like, 20-mile hike it's all
Yeah.
relative, right?
Yeah.
For some people, it may be too much,
And
but 20 miles
100.
is not much for me these
Yeah.
days. Hopefully.
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you've done 205 miles, 25 is something that 20 is something that you can do in your sleep, probably. But
Yeah.
tell me one thing: does all of your triathlon and mountaineering expeditions also a good motivator for you to travel around the world? Is that something also that excites you to travel with a purpose? And do you like traveling?
I've never looked at it that way, and
Hmm.
it's not really like the primary objective
Hmm.
for me.
Hmm.
I do enjoy it for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
New places, new culture, new food.
Hmm.
Um, but if I'm being like super honest, I'm there to climb and I'm there to like, do it and get out.
But does your family travel with you when you're going to all these places?
So like a lot of these things are, focused on very
Hmm.
specific like the expedition stuff, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
and combining taking
Hmm.
extra time from work is hard. So typically no,
Okay.
because
Un-
if I have, for example, like 2 to 3 weeks off,
hmm.
then I'm like out there, on the
Yeah,
mountain, right?
100%.
So
Yeah.
so it's hard to do combine it, but we do have other places to go
Yeah,
for
yeah.
vacation,
Uh, if you want, we can delete
like
this
Hawaii.
question. It might just become controversial at your home.
Oh, it's fine.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You say it now.
I've
All
been
right.
married for like 15, 16 years.
All right. You've crossed that bridge.
It's good understanding.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So we are towards the end of our last segment. I want to, because you're in tech and you've been through the journey in the last 2 decades, uh, what indicators do you feel is happening around the world around endurance and triathlon? And if you want to speak up specifically about Indian market, because like you were mentioning earlier, your dad is also into ultra marathons and organizing them. So what are your perceptions
Hmm.
about the evolving Indian market and triathlon market here in India and generally across the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably like not fair to ask me about the Indian market because I don't live there,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I haven't lived there since
Hmm.
for about 25 years now. So what I see
Hmm.
from social media and friends and family
Hmm.
is incredible in the sense that there's a lot of people getting into it,
Hmm.
how normal it is. And I know it probably sounds strange for some people, but in the late 90s, maybe even the early 2000s, the population of folks doing this
Hmm.
uh, was smaller, right? So
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
like that the community has grown. I like that there's people interested in things,
Hmm.
beyond the traditional sports that we heard about, right? Like, of course,
Hmm.
cricket and
Cricket.
football and all of these are awesome, right? But
Hmm.
having interest in other sports is great too.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's what I see as a
Hmm.
person who's not living there from the
Hmm.
outside,
Hmm.
and I like that.
Hmm.
And again, my dad, he's run ultra marathons in India. He's done 100, 200 miles himself, and now he's organizing races. So I hear from him how he sees people
Hmm.
come and do events with him,
Hmm.
cross that barrier of marathon and do more,
Hmm.
and they all experience new things. So that's my observation. Um, in terms of the triathlon market, I think we touched upon this. The triathlon market is like very focused on the tech, the gear, the
Hmm.
times, the outcome. And I think that's how that sport is constructed, right? Because you do have a deadline, right?
Certainly.
17 hours, right? And there's intermediate cutoffs. So is the case in ultra marathons, but it's just like a really long span. Like,
Yeah.
most 100 milers will give you like 30 to 48 hours, right? Depending on what kind of race it is and how much climbing it is. But you probably have one or two or three opportunities if things go wrong to fix it and to course correct your race.
Okay.
In triathlon, you have less of that buffer. In marathon, you have less of that buffer. Um, so yeah, I think what would be good, like I think where I would love to see is like more trail races in India. Like I think there's so much beautiful land in India, and there's very few races. It would be great to see that explode and doing more kinds of races. Like I see a lot of races that are just like these stadium track runs. They're probably good, but I want people to see more
Yeah.
than just running around in circles.
100%. All right, Saurabh, one last question. Do you have
Yeah.
any parting advice, parting, tips and tricks for people, especially in the corporates who are at a certain age and stage in their lives, probably where they've not been exposed to fitness, aerobics, anaerobics, generally in life? How do they get started and how do they keep going?
Yeah, we touched upon this early, so
Hmm.
I'll probably just say it in a fewer words. Consistency and consistency with purpose, and just doing what you find joy in, not comparing yourself with others, not expecting to be what you want to be on day one, right? It takes time. I think those are some things like people can put all of that together. Uh, yeah, and I guess like step one is like getting started, right? You want to you want to get rid of a bad habit and replace it with something else, right? Don't leave a vacuum, because that's kind of like my personality, right? Like I need some kind of addiction, right? So I need like something to go on. But consistency, purpose, um, um, yeah, those are some things. Um, and I saw my dad start pretty late. Like he was in his 60s when he ran ultra
Wow.
marathons. So it's not too late,
Yeah, I
ever.
think it's never late, right? It's never late. There are people in the age groups of 80, 90 and still running half
Yeah,
marathons, full marathons. It's just so incredible to
yeah.
see. Uh,
And you don't have to run like a half marathon. You don't have to do an Ironman. You don't have to
exactly.
do a full marathon. If you just go out and do like 5 kilometers every day, 2 kilometers every day, who cares, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to like, did you have fun? Yes.
Oh my, I think that's incredible how you put it. And I think slowly, gradually, if you build it over a period of time, have a sense of purpose, you keep showing up with consistency, and just, then you can ramp it up from there. Thank you so much, Saurabh,
That's it.
taking out your time, sharing your pearls of wisdom. I feel like I've already traveled halfway across the world with you with so many summits that you were talking about. It's just been a rewarding conversation with you.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Thank you, listeners. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Subscribe to the channel. I'll put all the links for Sob's profile in the show notes. I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.